Welcome to the Games I Fucking Hate Halloween special. Today I'm gonna talk about a game that's certainly horrific, but for all the wrong reasons. In 1996, a game was released that would forever change the way people would look at the horror genre. It wasn't the first horror game of all time, but the impact it had on the gaming industry because of its innovations can still be felt to this day. The game I'm talking about is
Resident Evil.
Due to the praise that Resident Evil got, it quickly sold upwards of 1 million copies. 2 years later, Resident Evil 2 was released and was met with even greater success. Because of this, every gaming company in the world was trying to recreate the magic that Shinji Mikami bestowed upon the world with the original Biohazard. Right after Squaresoft cashed the Final Fantasy VII check in the bank, they tried their hand at creating something like Resident Evil and succeeded with 1998's Parasite Eve. Even Capcom themselves did this when they released Dino Crisis, a game that plays very much like Resident Evil, but instead of zombies, there are dinosaurs. Now other companies such as Jaleco and even the mighty Sega came out with imitations that were given negative reception and basically ridiculed. However, there was one company that made a game that has been virtually forgotten by almost everyone. A ripoff with a very strange history that goes all the way back to 1997. This is
Countdown, Vampires. It's the last night of 1999. Vampires are invading Las Vegas. These heroes are out to protect the city. But it's gonna take more than wooden stakes to stop these blood-sucking beasts. Blood-curdling action. Battle as human or vampire. Customize your own game. Unique 5-senses system. 37 challenging levels. Countdown, Vampires.
Before we move on, I'd really like to dissect that trailer. First off, it says that vampires are invading Las Vegas. Well, that's not true. The vampires are invading a place called Casino City. It's very clearly supposed to be Las Vegas, but it's never explicitly called that in the game. Don't ask me why it was here. Secondly, it says that you can
battle as human or vampire,
which is pretty much a lie, considering that the only way you can play as a vampire is if you beat the game in under 8 hours. Beating the game in that amount of time unlocks the Prince of Darkness minigame, which lets you play as a vampire, for a total of 20 minutes. Meaning that you can definitely not switch between human and vampire, as this amazing ad is implying. Now, what was next?
Customize your own game.
This is true if customize means doesn't change anything at all from Resident Evil 2. And what was that last bit?
Unique 5-senses system.
Okay, I don't even know what the hell they're talking about there. But just from that ad, I think you guys can already tell that we're about to delve into some really, really bad territory. As I mentioned before, this is a Resident Evil ripoff. In fact, this is Bandai's Resident Evil ripoff. It was developed by a company named K2. By the way, you may want to remember K2, they're kind of important. Now, what is the plot of this game? Pretty simple. You play as Keith J, I'm going to take my shirt off and none of you can stop me, as vampires randomly start appearing in a club called the Desert Moon that he's supposed to be a VIP guard in. After that, the plot goes balls to the wall and introduces all sorts of weird monsters and even a demon from hell or something along those lines. One of the biggest problems with this game is that it's so damn boring. After the first cutscene in this game, everything comes to a screeching halt and doesn't pick back up until much later. In the spirit of Resident Evil imitation, this game also has some horrible voice acting. Let me play a clip or two to show you what I mean.
I'm a homicide detective from a neighboring state, and I've specifically come here for a very simple reason. What's your role in all this, Detective Swish? Something's weird.
Before you die, I'm going to tell you a little secret, just to make it so you really don't want to die.
Gels, the Emperor has been resurrected. Let's hurry and get him back to life. Then we'll take care of the girl.
I swear that these next two clips are not from a porn or hentai.
I'm finished. I guess you really do reap what you sow.
It hurts a bit, but I can walk.
I love how the main hero, who's supposed to look like a badass, sounds like a 15-year-old teenager. Really, nothing sets a tone like the sound of a boy going through puberty narrating the entire game. Before I talk about the strange history surrounding this game, I feel I really need to drive home how much of a ripoff this game actually is, and not just of Resident Evil. We actually have to look no further than the illustration that is packed in with the game. Our main hero, who kind of looks like a woman here, is definitely not a ripoff of Seth Gecko from Robert Rodriguez's From Dusk Till Dawn, which is also a movie about vampires, right? And this rendition of a girl named Masato here is definitely not supposed to remind me in any way of Regina from Dino Crisis, right? What about this character, Mira Swish? Red dress, red lipstick, big boobs, green eyes, and brown hair, which is in no way supposed to remind me of Melissa Pierce from Parasite Eve, right? By the way, Mira is a detective and she's 25 years old, just like Aya Brea was a detective who was also 25 years old in Parasite Eve. And Mira has a sister who she's been looking for in the entire game, just like Aya had a sister who she'd been looking for in the entire game too. And finally, what about this guy? A SWAT member. He's definitely not supposed to remind me of Nikolai from Resident Evil 3 either, I guess. This really should have just been called Rip Off the Game. Now we have to talk about how bad the game actually is, because I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't. So let me share a personal experience I had with this atrocity. At the beginning of the game, you pick up certain ID cards. One of them opens a door labeled Cheryl, another one a door named Susie, and the final card opens up a door named Nancy. By the time you've gotten all these cards, you've exhausted any other means of moving around. So what do? You find the Nancy door and open it. But the Nancy door only leads to a few slot machines and a dead end. So what do you do after that? I ran around for 30 minutes trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to be doing until I called it quits and looked on YouTube. I already saw that next to the Nancy door there was a door named Alice. And as it turns out, the card with the Nancy ID also opens the door with the Alice name. I guess I'm the idiot here for not attempting to open a door with the name Alice with an ID card labeled Nancy. Definitely not the creator's fault for not even giving me a goddamn hint. By far the most infuriating thing in this game is that you're fighting vampires. They're faster than zombies and are pretty tough to beat with the shitty weapons they give you at the start of the game. They give you the stun globe? That's a mistranslation for glove, and a pretty funny one, but whatever. They also give you this dart gun which puts the vampires to sleep. Kinda? Now, why these darts would put a vampire to sleep is beyond me, but the darts are about as useful as a pocket knife against Michael Myers. The big problem with the darts is that they only do their job after you've fired a ton of them, but there are usually so many vampires in the room who are pretty fast that are trying to kill you, so there's no way you could shoot all of these guys at once, and you usually end up taking a lot of damage. It's the same mess with the stun glove, except worse because it has such a limited range. You end up getting gang raped by all these vampires and you can't run because you keep getting stuck. If you stun the vampires or tranquilize them, you don't really kill them. The stun gun can kill them, but it takes a lot of hits. What you have to do to finally get rid of these things is pour white water on them.
This white water turns them back to normal.
I'm guessing it's like holy water, but I've got no clue really. Why would white water or holy water be lying around in infinite quantities at a casino? Again, I've got no clue. It's just stupid. And once again, in the spirit of being like Resident Evil, you have save rooms, and with their own save music as well. The puzzles in this game aren't very fun, and you never feel satisfied about solving them either because they're pretty simple. You can't even run and gun in this game, which would have been a very nice way to differentiate itself a bit from Resident Evil, because in those games you can't. Had this feature existed before Countdown Vampires was released, I'm sure it would have been in this game. But sadly, the run and gun feature was only made available in Dino Crisis 2, which was released several months after this game in 2000. Before I wrap up talking about the actual game, I'd like to say that the CG movies are actually pretty fun to watch, and I'd say that the graphics resemble those of even early PS2 games. It isn't better than the CG in, say, Parasite Eve 2, but it certainly catches the eye. Which brings me to the final part of this review. The very strange history of this game. It's very clear to me that Bandai thought Countdown Vampires was going to be something big. They invested what appears to be a good amount of money into the game itself, as the game has good CGI like I mentioned, and multiple endings along with a minigame or two. Bandai published a survival guide for the game, and also commissioned a comic book here in the United States that was published by Studio G. Only one issue, The Gathering, was published. The other two are complete ghosts. The book itself is an adaptation of the game, with the first issue being somewhat of a prequel. Another testament to the amount of money that they put into this game was the fact that the character of Masato was based off an actress named Yuka Kobayashi, who worked as a stunt double in various well-known movies. She did 3D modeling for them, and here she is playing the game itself. That brings us to the weirdest point about this game. The character in this game, known as Masato, isn't originally from this game. Masato made her very first gaming appearance in something called
MJ, the Mystery Hospital.
The Mystery Hospital.
巨大病院で謎の大爆発に巻き込まれた。
In fact, there she is. MJ, the Mystery Hospital is a game about a virus that breaks out in a hospital. The patients are trapped and there's no way out. The game is set in first-person view where you must interact with your surroundings, which is very reminiscent of Kenji Ino's D that was released in 1995 for the PlayStation 1. I'm gonna assume that this was actually Bandai's attempt to rip that game off. In a review I read of MJ, the reviewer said that the game bored him to tears, which I find hilarious. By the way, the Mystery Hospital was developed by none other than K2. The fact that MJ, the Mystery Hospital, never saw an American release, yet Countdown Vampires did, also speaks a great amount to the faith Bandai had in it. So, what ended up happening to Countdown Vampires? The answer is jack shit. Countdown Vampires most definitely flopped and became nothing but a money pit. The game was given mixed reviews here in the United States, but apparently no one was playing it. People probably caught on to the fact that it was just another Resident Evil ripoff and saved their money for the more attractive looking Parasite Eve 2, Resident Evil 3, or Dino Crisis 2. Satoshi Mizuhara, the director of this game, he never went on to make anything else after this. Same goes for the majority of the producers and the artists. It's like everyone who was affiliated with this game had their entire career silenced in the blink of an eye. What went wrong? Did the game sell that badly in Japan? Well, I guess we'll never know. There's practically no information about this game on the internet to begin with. I had to scrape the bottom of the barrel for what I'm telling you right now. It's like Bandai wanted to erase any trace of this game having existed, except they didn't do a good enough job seeing as how the official game website is still up. There you can see Yuka Kobayashi playing the game and modeling, and Satoshi working on the game itself. There's even an ad there for MJ, the Mystery Hospital. Now that that's said and done, the final question is, what rating do I give this game? A Resident Evil ripoff that has completely unbalanced elements, a terrible plot, and hilariously bad voice acting? The answer is simple. Because this game would be lucky to be mentioned in the same breath as Resident Evil Survivor. Actually, screw that. This game would be lucky to be mentioned in the same breath as Resident Evil Gaiden. I'd rather try to beat Castlevania 2 wearing a blindfold. I'd rather try to play the original Blood Rain on the Atari Jaguar. I'd rather have Blade shove the Blade up my asshole, and I'd rather sit down and watch a 4Kids edited version of 30 Days of Night than ever play this game again. And you know why? It's because this game fucking sucks. Countdown Vampires for the PlayStation 1 gets a bullshit.